Afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to welcome you all to today's Talking Tourism Coffee Catch-Up. And today we're going to be hearing from Charlotte Goy, our CEO at Visit Lincoln, Rachel Dorsett, who will be speaking to us on the subject of communicating with your customers, and Josh Waring from Ran Farm, who's going to update us on all what's been happening on down at the farm and what their plans are for the future, and Caroline Bingham, who's the Chief Exec at County Life Limited. So, as always, just to let you know, we are recording today. The recording is kept safely, stored away with us here at Visit Lincoln. You should be all on mute, so don't be overly concerned about any background noise. Last week, I asked you to bring along your mugs. For those of you that didn't hear that, I'll let you off. But anybody that remembers from last week, I asked you to bring your mugs. So I want to see your mugs now, if you can show me those, and hold them for a moment because Jess is going to just take a quick screenshot. So, oh, got some great ones there. Oh, Josh, you forgot you've got a glass of water. Fabulous. Jess, are you done? Are you okay? Did you get them all? Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you for everybody doing that. So this week we had a little bit of shock news really that Leicester had gone into local lockdown, and as a sector I'm sure that you'll all agree that you really feel for those businesses that had waited so long to open only to find out then that they weren't in a position to do so and that they couldn't. So I do hope that all those businesses can hold on just that little bit longer and that they thrive once their locals get back to supporting them and they're allowed to open. It is a timely reminder that we do need to continue to be aware, stay safe and follow guidance. The news about Leicester led to a number of calls from accommodation providers that were just a little bit concerned that they'd got bookings from guests travelling from Leicester. So I'm hoping that the people of Leicester did adhere to their official advice and they rang you, they rearranged or made alternative plans. But just to reiterate, the advice would be that you can't accept a guest travelling to you from Leicester. At the moment, you've got to try and offer them an alternative date, a refund, a voucher, do something, but try and make it possible. This is really important. It's a sad situation, but the guidelines are very clear. So no one should be travelling into or out of Leicester unless it's absolutely necessary. Non-essential travel is not allowed. We also had a few calls about what's classed as non-essential items for some of the accommodation providers. So again, just to be clear, it includes toys, books, board games, extra decorative cushions, anything that is not essential to your guest's stay. You should only be leaving and cleaning essential items, so linen, kitchenware, utensils, glassware, all the things that they need. And I know it's really hard because loads of you take great pride in, providing that home from a home environment, but just for the safety of you, your staff and your guests, this is just a new way of working, so that needs to be followed. I'm happy to report that lots of you have completed the online application and received your Visit England Good to Go mark. So you're now ready to display this in your premises and on your website and your emails. If you haven't done this already, get in touch with me, Samantha, at visitlincoln.com. Just drop me an email, I'll explain it to you and I can forward the link to you and you can apply. Once you've got that mark, you'll be added to our listing on the Visit Lincoln website and then you'll have your details updated. So we're going to start today by hearing from Charlotte Goy, who's the CEO here at Visit Lincoln. So Charlotte, have you got an update for us?
Yeah, I have. So thanks everybody. Really, really nice to see you all again. Thanks for joining us. Saturday, the 4th of July is only a couple of days away now. So I think it's a date that we've all been looking towards, and we're all approaching it with all the right measures that we put in place for our business to keep everybody safe. So Visit Lincoln, we're part of the Tourism Association, and every day we get a policy update from them. So I just thought it was worth just sort of reiterating what Samantha mentioned earlier, that in one of the minister briefing sessions, it was highlighted that there still remains a number of reopening issues that the new guidance from the government hasn't put clarity around. And two of them specifically focus on what information businesses need to capture when they're welcoming people back as part of the reopening, around track and trace. And so we are lobbying to get more clarity around that with other people and other trade organisations, so we can feed that back to you, so you have very clear guidance on what information you need to be taking from your guests and your visitors, to kind of fulfil that track and trace request from the government. And the other one was also getting information from OTAs. So these are booking platforms that you might be using to sell your accommodation or your tickets. So getting information from OTAs on their bookings, so you as a business owner know where your guests are coming from. And I think that's been highlighted again because of the unfortunate lockdown in Leicester. So it's very much about enabling business owners to actually have the right information they need to keep people safe. So there's a couple of conversations going on there. If you've got any kind of feedback on that, or if you want us to pass that up the chain to DCMS and Visit England, then get in touch with us as a team. But it is something that we're looking to lobby on your behalf for. Another piece of feedback that we've had from DCMS was around the flexible furloughing scheme, and how our businesses across Lincolnshire are applying it to their reopening plans. And the feedback we've had on this so far is that it's taken quite a lot of time to administer. Potentially it's putting a couple of businesses off actually using the scheme because they can't afford the risk of getting it wrong. They want to make sure that they're crossing all the T's and they're dotting all the I's. And the couple of businesses that I've spoken to are looking to actually go to their accountants to help them cover that, and some of them that's a cost that they can't afford. So again, this is kind of like the real nitty gritty of the policy changes that have come out. How does it actually apply in practice? So any kind of interpretations you have about how the reopening guidance that was issued is or isn't working for your business, it's really important that you feed that back to us as a team, because we are in constant contact with the decision makers to make sure that the business voice is actually heard when these documents are being pulled together. What I'd really like to do now is just share my screen with you. But we've been doing research, and we had our second business questionnaire out a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to pull through some of the information for you. So we surveyed some of our partners, and some of the tourism officers kindly shared it with them as well. And the research that we pulled through, it showed that the majority of people who filled out the survey were from the accommodation sector. So we had hotels, guest B&Bs as well as cultural venues, retail, food and drink producers too. One thing we really wanted to clarify was where the majority of business comes from. So you can see through this chart of the businesses who filled out the survey, over half of customers who are going to be coming back to their business are from within Lincolnshire and also within the East Midlands. So that kind of helps us with our marketing strategy when we look at who we're targeting and who we're talking to. This was a really, really key question for us as well. It's when do you plan to reopen? And even though the guidance came out to reopen on the 4th of July, what we actually found is that, July is a month that people are looking to reopen, and it swings into August. But also we're looking at venues and attractions opening a little bit later into the year as well, which is interesting when we're looking at the marketing proposition. The next question we asked was, how much notice would your business need before becoming fully operational once you exit lockdown? And again, this was a really important question around supply chain and how engaged businesses are with their supply chain and how quickly they could reopen. So what we can see here is that actually between a couple of days and a couple of weeks is the supply chain notice period that we've got across Lincolnshire for tourism reopening. And again, that's about understanding when we can go out with that marketing message and what other product and businesses are going to be available across the county. This was a question that we wanted to ask, and again it feeds into the policy and the lobbying that we're doing. What do you think the additional costs may be for your business to adopt new COVID secure measures? And you can see here that nearly all businesses who filled out the survey have adopted a cost when it comes to reopening. And again, it's really important that that's recognised. So when we're lobbying for ongoing support for the sector, there's this understanding that actually some of the costs to reopening have increased as well. What measures have you already undertaken to mitigate the impact of COVID in your business? I think this really paints a picture about how businesses and how people that we've got on the call today are actually approaching their reopening. So everybody has in some way or form researched the guidance and have thought about applying it to their business. So again, it shows a real appetite for reopening across Lincolnshire, which is really, really positive. And it also gives us steer on what ongoing support we can offer, what peer-to-peer support we can offer, and what we can give as Visit Lincoln as well. This slide's quite interesting because it's looking at the financial viability for businesses to start trading with the social distancing measures. And it was really encouraging that when the new guidance was announced on the 4th of July, all of the campaigning that had taken place by everybody in the trade associations to reevaluate the 2 metre versus 1 metre social distancing rule was kind of looked at through the lens of tourism, hospitality and retail. So what this slide is telling us is that actually a lot of businesses will be opening because of more of a sort of civic duty as well. They want to re-engage with their businesses, and again that's a really key message to understand when we're marketing and when we know how we're welcoming people back to our businesses in Lincolnshire as well. We wanted to also look at coronavirus with a positive spin on it as well. So when we were talking to businesses about, what opportunities they thought coronavirus might present, I think the overriding feedback was a demand for more rural locations, which you can see here at the top, and also an emphasis on quality and staycations and a drive for local. So, again, this is giving us a snapshot of where that tone of voice needs to be and where the marketing needs to be as well. And in a minute, you'll see how this crosses over with what Visit England are saying. And then this is the Visit England We're Good to Go toolkit. So some of you will have filled this out already, but if you haven't seen it, here's what it looks like. And on the call this morning from Visit England, they just sort of re-emphasised the fact that the mark was about confidence to businesses, reassuring the visitors, reassurance to local visitors, one standard mark that consumers can get behind. And also, interestingly, they've seen interest from other countries across the UK who are covering other countries from across the world who are now covering the UK as a holiday destination because of the work that they've done around COVID secure practice. Here's some case studies about how businesses across other parts of the UK are actually PRing their good to go standard that they've got. And to date, they've had nearly 15,000 applications as well for it, which is really, really encouraging. And then on the other side, on the consumer side, they're actually looking at adopting a consumer marketing message called Know Before You Go. And this, again, is an example of how some of the other destinations across the UK are actually using Know Before You Go as part of their consumer marketing. It's something that we're going to be doing in the next couple of days at Visit Lincoln. For anybody who hasn't seen it, all of this is available on the Visit England website. So if you go to Visit England website and Google Know Before You Go or We're Good to Go, there's a wealth of information which you can see here. There's the online assessment platform. All the latest guidance has been put in one place for you, and then there's more information about Know Before You Go as well. So if you click onto the Know Before You Go campaign, there's a toolkit here that you can actually download. And what that does is that gives you access for your business to actually use some of the assets that Visit England has created in your own marketing too. So I would encourage you to have a look at that as well. With regards to our own marketing at Visit Lincoln, we're in the process of developing the city campaign, which will be profiled through the Visit Lincoln channels, and also working with our partners across the county as well to work on a Visit Lincolnshire activity and marketing project too. So I'll share some more information on this in the coming weeks. But if anybody's got any questions, then please drop them out through an email. And we'll be sending out the links to the website pages that I mentioned earlier after this webinar.
Oh, thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, I think with regards to the track and trace, as Charlotte says, we will continue to get clarity on that, and as soon as we do, we can send that information out to you all, so you're better informed. In terms of, I suppose, for our accommodation providers, the track and trace can be a little bit easier, because what I'd suggest is sometimes when your guests arrive, just like when you go to the airport and somebody would ask you, has anyone tampered with your bag? When your guest arrives, when they're checking in, if you ask them, do you feel ill? Have any symptoms of feeling ill? If they say no, try and get them to sign that little sheet of paper when they book in with you and say, no, I feel fine. At the moment, advice is that if they approach you and say, I don't feel too well, then you need to ask them to leave immediately. Get in their car, go back home, seek medical advice. You would go in rigorously clean. If for any reason they are too ill to leave, and we shouldn't really get to that point because they should be telling you before this, but let's just say, worst case scenario, for whatever reason they can't leave, then yes, you're going to have to keep them in your accommodation, but I would suggest that you charge them a daily rate. Don't let them stay there for something like 14 days and then at the end be in a position where you're not going to get paid. So try and get that daily rate. And as I say, you should not get to that point. The onus is on the guest to come and approach you and tell you that they're not feeling too well. But as those track and trace details come out, we'll forward that over to you and give you more clarity, as I say. Very apt that Charlotte's just gone through all that with us, because today's topic is about communication. So that fits in really well, so that's great. So we're going to hear now from Rachel Dorsett, who is a leading PR and communications consultant who started her career with the BBC and after 12 years set up her own specialist business in the field of food and leisure. So Rachel works with a host of restaurants, theme parks, hoteliers and food producers, and has also opened an award-winning cafe in Deli. So she only knows too well how much communicating with your customers, how important that is. So Rachel, if we could go to you, it'd be lovely to hear from you, please.
Hi everybody, I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Great to meet you all. So as Sam says, I've been working in communications and PR for 25 years now, and started at the BBC, which is where I did all my training, and latterly have worked as a consultant for a PR agency in Nottingham, and I'm currently working with a handful of restaurants in Nottingham, helping them to reopen, and also a couple of theme parks, one in Nottinghamshire and one in Norfolk, so helping them really kind of navigate all the communications processes around reopening. So for the past 10 years I've specialised in kind of hospitality sector and food and drink and leisure. And as Sam said, before all of that, whilst I was having my children, I opened a café and deli and set that up from scratch in Leicestershire. So I've been at the sharp end of hospitality, and I've definitely got the scars to prove it. It isn't easy, hats off to you. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding as well. So obviously now I'm continuing to work in PR, and I also have a coaching and training company. And that really is around helping business owners and teams effectively communicate. So that can be internally and also externally to all their customers, but internally, around employee relations, staff retention, how to grow your customer base, that sort of thing. And really, for me, it's all around effective communication. So if it's okay with you, I just thought I'd talk to you today just a little bit about how to communicate to your customers right now, at this moment in time, as we come out of lockdown and we work towards reopening our businesses, because it is a tough time. And easing people out of their homes now after 3 months of lockdown, is the first thing really to be aware of. And there is a lot of anxiety and there is a lot of hesitancy around at the minute, and how to navigate your way through this to make sure that your customers come back to you in the right way and make them feel the right way about coming back to you is really important. So I think Sam sent me some research today which gives a really good indication of what the public mood is at the minute. And assuming that the mood and the confidence is quite low at the moment as we kind of ease out of lockdown and kind of build people's confidence back up, the language that we use in the way that we communicate with our customers right now can really either hinder that process or can really help to build the trust back up with our customer base. And I think our job at the minute is to try and alleviate all of those fears and all of those anxieties that our customers might have. And it's really important that we get this right. So I wandered into town a couple of weeks ago, just as the shops started to reopen, and I wandered into my local town. And I saw quite a lot of businesses doing it all completely differently. Everybody has their own approach to it. And some were really, really successful, and some hadn't quite thought it through properly. And I could just see from the signage on the doors and, that a lot of the shops were empty, regardless of the fact that High Street was actually bustling. What a massive difference it is in terms of our approach. So I just thought I'd, give you my advice here in terms of what we can do and what we should be doing to sort of make our customers feel at ease about bringing them back into our businesses. So rather than putting extra barriers in, we need to remove all of the barriers to entry right now as much as we possibly can and positively welcome people back in. So make them feel as though you're really pleased that they're there. And don't take my word for it, look at the businesses around you that are doing really well on this front. So, for example, if you keep your door locked and you allow people in one at a time by unlocking your door and making them ring your bell, it's a barrier to entry. And basically, you may as well say, go away, because we really don't want you here. We need to remove all those barriers as much as possible. And yes, of course, we need to be safe. And, I'm assuming that everybody is working with the really strict government guidelines that are out there in terms of, hygiene and social distancing. But I would actually assume that all businesses are doing that. So that would be my first assumption. And so I think actually welcoming those people in is really important by making it as easy as possible for them. So I would recommend having somebody on the door permanently if you can. Having a really friendly member of staff on your door, welcoming people in, helping them with the process, answering their questions, showing them what to do, conversing with them, and not about giving them instructions all the time, but making them feel really welcome, that you really want to see them and you want them to be there. So I think whether that's written or verbal, tone of voice is really key to success. So getting the balance right between what I call invitational language and commanding language goes an awfully long way to building back that trust with your customers. So there are proven sales techniques around influential language that I think are really relevant right now. And, we need to be using these techniques because customer advocacy is so important right now. I mean, it's always important, but it's never more important than now. We need those customers back, but what we also need is for them to go away feeling really happy with the service that they've had and the time that they've had with you. And we need them to tell all of their friends and all of their family that they need to come and visit you as well. And the power of that actually lies with you, with the business owners and with the staff. You know, it isn't luck, it isn't sorcery, it isn't black magic. It actually, the power lies with you on that front. You can make that happen. So as far as communication techniques go, and this is really simplifying the process, but I think it's helpful to think of it in this way. There are actually two types of people in the world. So there are the goal-oriented people, and these are the people who dive straight in and do. They don't hang around, they don't read the small print, the get up and goers. You know, they haven't got time to chit chat, they have a goal, they want to get on with it. They're usually very externally referenced, so they feed from everything that's around them, that's going on around them. This is the easy group. So they really appreciate commanding language. Efficiency is their goal. So they don't mind being told in very direct language and in as few words as possible what to do. They may not do it. In fact, they probably definitely won't do it, but they won't be put off by this very direct commanding language. But those sorts of people make up the minority. So for those people, it's perfectly okay to communicate, you know, in ways like, wait here to be seated, 3 people inside only, you know, that very commanding language. And my favourite, actually, that, you know, I saw on a fruit and veg stall in Lincoln recently, touch it and it's yours, pay for it. I mean, you know, how commanding. But very interestingly, that store had no customers. All the other stalls on the market were really, really jam-packed. The town was bustling, and that stall had no customers. And, you know, I would say it's because of that sign that was on the front of their stall. So, yeah, I think we all know a goal-oriented person, but most of us aren't like that. So direct, commanding language like that would, A, really offend most people, or B, actually really, really offend most people. So I wouldn't recommend it. And you see so much of that around at the minute. You know, just look at the businesses and the types of language that they've got pinned to their doors, and some of it is very, very commanding, and it puts people off. It's a barrier. It's actually saying, we don't want you here. That's what it says to me anyway. So yeah, people would walk away from it. And you know, and I think what we need to do is just talk in a way that is very invitational to the second group of people and the majority of people, actually. And these are the problem solvers, I call them. So they're much more thoughtful in their approach, they're internally referenced, they'll look at all of the options before they make a decision. They'll base that decision on whether you, as a service provider, are actually providing a solution to their problem. And these problems at the minute are, is the hygiene up to scratch? Is the social distancing in place? Am I going to be safe? You know, what sort of things have that business put in place for me to make my visit as nice as possible? And let's face it, that's what people are after right now. You know, they want to have a good time. So these sorts of people are the people who will sit and read a menu from cover to cover before they make a decision. If you own a B&B, these are the sorts of people who you would show them their room and you would go back downstairs, and within 5 minutes of you being there, they'd probably ring the reception desk and say, actually, do you mind if we just look at another room? Those are the sorts of people I'm talking about, the problem solvers. So this group of people don't respond well to commanding language of any kind. They want invitational language, and importantly, they want to make their own minds up about it. So the types of notices and communication that you would make with these sorts of people are things like, we've thought of everything, so you don't have to. You know, we invite you to book a table on our website in advance. We want to ensure that we can serve you safely. And, you know, if you will kindly wait here to be seated, we can ensure that you will receive the best possible service. It's that sort of language, and you see it's very invitational and completely different. So you're inviting them to do something, and you're also giving the reason why it solves their problem. So you're giving them all the information, and then you've got them eating out of your hands, basically. And, you know, this sort of language translates not just in written notices, but also on your social media channels, on your website, how your staff and you talk to your customers as well. And also, I would really recommend putting as much information on your website as possible, by the way, and your social media channels. Just set the expectations for your customers before they arrive at your premises. Allow them to do their research before they arrive, because people want to be reassured. And if you can put as much information on those channels as possible, you're just making the process so much easier for people. And again, removing all those barriers, that people have put in place right now. So remember also, your staff fall into these two groups as well. So how you talk to your staff will either demotivate them or motivate them, if they're part of this problem-solving gang. I mean, we're all in this industry because we like people. I'm making that assumption. So ensuring your staff are really well trained in how to communicate with your customers right now is really, really important. And ask yourself, do my staff like people? And secondly, ask yourself, are your staff pleased to be back at work? You know, it sounds obvious, but some of them might not be. Some of them might be as anxious and nervous about that as some of your customers might be. And it will show on their faces. You know, if you haven't addressed that beforehand, it will be written all over their face. You know, if they're nervous, your customers will be nervous. And non-verbal language is actually more powerful than anything. So a leading psychologist has put a report out recently to say that actually 93% of communication is taken from non-verbal cues, not the things we say, but the things that people see in front of them. So the things that are written on your face, it's actually more powerful than the spoken word. So it's really important, I think, that, your staff are pleased to be back at work, and that, they want to be there, because that will come through, and that will show to your customers. So if you've got members of staff who are anxious and nervous about being back at work, I think, sit down with them beforehand and have a good chat with them about all of the things that they might be worried about, and make sure that they're really well trained before you open your doors. Again, it's really important. You want it to go as smoothly as possible, and you want those customers to keep coming back to you. So it's worth just spending some time with your employees before you open. Help them to offer the best service they possibly can to customers, anxiety-free. And, we want to make sure that all the customers who come in are having a great time. So you and your staff have the real power to influence your customers' experience, 100% positively and 100% negatively. So by using the right language, you can really build rapport with everyone. And I actually think there's no such thing as a difficult customer. It's only ever the wrong language, and that's the key to it. So I would also recommend proactively asking your customers for feedback. Some businesses can be afraid of this, but actually I think it's really, really important to proactively ask for it. And when you do get the feedback, act on it. That their opinions are absolutely crucial right now. Ask them what they want. Ask them how the experience could be better for them, and really listen to that feedback. And do the same with your frontline staff as well. I think it makes a huge difference. So never stop communicating, but make it really, really invitational language. And I think you can't go wrong. And Sam and I were talking about this earlier in the week, and she sent me a video from the Cozy Club, who put out this video on their social media channels this week. So I just thought I'd end by just playing you this, so you can see an example of how the Cozy Club have really taken this on board in terms of answering all their customers' questions. And it's these problem solvers, that they've targeted this video towards. So just have a look at this, and hopefully this will demonstrate exactly what I mean.
informative. Thank you so much for that. And there's just a couple of points that I just sort of reiterating around utilising the skills of your staff as well. So a couple of the businesses that we're talking to is actually doing a bit of a skills audit of the staff that they've got, and the ones that are best placed to be on that front of house role, welcoming, and it is very much about welcoming and that community feeling now, perhaps more so than the enforcement and sort of policing strong messages that we saw at the beginning of coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it very much is that kind of softly approach right now, and kind of welcoming those customers back, just making them feel as though you're really pleased to see them and you want them there. And yeah, and hopefully we can send this link round so you can all see this video, because I think it's just a really great example. And it's also worth saying that, yeah, that video, you know, it costs a bit to produce, and Cozy Club, you know, they're a massive company, and you don't potentially have the budget to do that, but you can do that really easily on your smartphones as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, a high-end produced video. You can easily film that on your smartphone. And again, I think you've got an example on the Visit Lincoln website of one of the clothes shops in town who have put together a video.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've done that really well. And it's just a really simple way of showing people what to do and what to expect when they arrive with you. And people like to do their research before they arrive. So the more content like that is on your website and on your social media channels, the better.
And some of the campaigns that the team's planning at Visit Lincoln will be picking up on those messages, and there might be an opportunity for us to collaborate with some businesses so that the videos they produce can also be used in the wider campaign. So yeah, that was a fantastic overview. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Rachel. And it is, you are right. It's for a lot of people, the staff are the face of your business. You know, you have to remember that they're ambassadors for your business. So making sure they do feel safe, they've got that brand message, they're conversing with customers in the correct way, really, really important. And it's really interesting to hear, you know, the way that there's commanding language and invitational language. I feel like there's some psychology behind it, but I find it really, really interesting. And I think, as a general rule, I have seen signs personally as well where they're quite aggressive in their approach, and I look at them and I think, well, if you were here in person, I wouldn't speak to you in that way with an exclamation mark and, you know, really sort of angry. So maybe when we're doing our signage, we should also think about, well, how would I hear this in my voice, and how can I portray that? So can't go too wrong if we try and stick to those rules. But yeah, thanks, Rachel. I really, really appreciate you coming today and talking to us. So we are going to hear from Josh now. So Josh from Ran Farm, who've won numerous awards, and I can't believe it, but Josh's parents started the business in 1996 after having to diversify from a pig and cattle farm, and they opened their doors on that very first day to 100 visitors. And today, alongside the Ran Farm that we've come to know and love, they also have the highly successful day nursery and preschool. They run a great educational programme for schools to engage with. They have overnight residential trips, and they now welcome around 110,000 guests a year. So come quite a long way in those few years there. So we're going to welcome Josh. And Josh, if you'd like to sort of tell us a bit about yourself, Ran Farm, and how excited you are. I would imagine you're very busy as well, ready for this Saturday's opening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, you've done all the introduction I need. I don't need a great deal more talking about myself. So I'll run through what we've done so far. We did a members weekend, which I'll talk to you about, and then sort of the proper opening. So I guess in line with the topic of today's coffee catch-up, the main thing is communication. So we've been keen to stay in constant contact with our visitors throughout. We've done a lot of Facebook Lives, we've done general Facebook posting, stuff on the website, all that kind of thing. But Facebook Lives have really become a key part of our marketing message. So I personally believe, I don't know if you share it with me, but I believe that the way for businesses like ours to come out of this is with local visitors. So I was having this conversation the other day that if you're looking at going to a restaurant, for instance, you're going to go to one you've been to, it's probably not going to be too far away first. You might branch out to places further afield, places you haven't visited before later on. But I think the same for our kind of business. So we're really focusing on members specifically, and people that are frequently visitors and have been recently from a fairly small locality. So in terms of the members, we were keen to let them in first. We have had some issues with our ticketing provider who facilitate our memberships as well. So we weren't able to suspend them with any confidence. We know that a couple of other people that they provide the memberships and ticketing for, they did try and suspend them and completely messed it up, actually cancelled a load of memberships, and we didn't want to run that risk. So we continued to take people's direct debit money. If we could have not done, we would have done, but we did continue to take it. So part of the communication was to reassure them that they would get that money back. So what we've pledged to do for all the direct debit members is give them back the amount they spent plus an extra 10% of on-site credit. So that will be valid until the end of August, we think, at the moment. So it's going to cost us quite a bit of money, although we have already had it. And that should drive the visitors back. So that's one of the things we're doing for members. So for our opening weekend, our members weekend, obviously we didn't charge them. We had a very, very small offering. We were only allowed to open the farm. We weren't allowed to do indoor play, obviously, we still aren't. We weren't even allowed to do petting and feeding. So the offer was very, very small. So we were only able to clearly open for members because it wasn't a chargeable attraction in our eyes. So we did that 2 weeks ago on Father's Day weekend. We capped the tickets, we only had about 100 people a day, and that gave us the opportunity to test what we were doing. So it was like dipping our toe in the water with our systems, how we would work, catering, and also to talk to some of them. So lots of the members have been many, many times, and it was good to get a feel from them about what they thought. So Rachel was talking about communication and hearing back, feedback, and we did that throughout the 2 days. So we were seeing how long people were spending with us doing those sorts of activities, chatting to them on the way in, way out. And those members are confident enough to say, yeah, I thought this was great, this wasn't so good, you can work on this. So that was a really useful thing that we've done. They were fairly happy with what we did. We didn't have any criticism, if I'm honest. A couple of points about areas in the animal barn that could be a little bit congested, but other than that, it went down very well. But it was very much a family affair. So it was me, my mum and dad, my girlfriend, and the 2 members of the team that we haven't furloughed. And people like that. So they like the family feel. I think we're not a huge attraction by any stretch of the imagination, but we are moving more towards a larger events-based business, which is clearly still the trajectory. But on the way out of this is kind of take a big step back, be a bit more of a family farm and tell people the story. And they like that, and they seem to like that throughout. So the measures we put in place are fairly standard, really. We've done the same as most of you will be doing, I guess, in a similar sort of sector to us. We've communicated the changes that we've made. We're asking everybody to book online and choose a slot. So we're not allowing constant free flow. They're choosing an arrival slot. We're not doing sessions. We are doing arrivals. So they can come all day from their start time. That's just to manage the queues a little bit. Standard stuff, screens, contactless payment, all that kind of thing. We did get some very interesting feedback on PPE from the members. So people don't really want to see masks. I think some people may bring them when they visit, but I think generally the feedback that we had from visitors is that they are not expecting and aren't really keen to see our team in masks. So we have screens. We've reduced the contact activities, so we're not doing Skyrider archery, some of our activities that are really quite close. So we've removed the need for any kind of face coverings for anybody really, unless they particularly want to. They're quite a pragmatic bunch really that came that weekend, and they thought the gloves were a complete waste of time, which is something that we share as well. So if you put your gloves on and you've touched something and then touched somebody else or your face, it's irrelevant. So we are not having screens or masks for any of our team. I think that makes it feel a bit more natural, a bit more personal, and also us, the people that are providing the day out, we're quite conscious of it now as well. So we've lived in this world for 3 months, the same as the visitors have, and I think you're a bit more aware of your own fingers and your own sense of touch and feel. So if you've touched something and it feels wrong, we can wash them. We can then be clean again. So we've made the decision not to use gloves and masks. We've bought plenty still. We have them in case legislation changes or customer appetite changes. But for now, we think the best thing is not to use those, and that's generally the feedback that we've had. And then we have an online system, it's like a portal with training in it and risk assessments, and we've put a few guides in there. We've asked our team to complete some different questionnaires and things. We'll be checking temperatures when they start work, surveys, make sure they're happy to come and they're feeling well and all that sort of thing. We did a survey for all members of staff. Do they have any concerns, queries? Are they caring for anybody with coronavirus? All that kind of standard stuff. Happy to share any of this with anybody if they would like any of these resources. I appreciate we're quite near the start date now, but if anybody would like to send that kind of stuff, let me know and I'll send you our templates. And it's a case of explaining what we're doing. So Rachel's comments about language really struck a nerve with me, because I'm absolutely one of the people in the direct category. I would respond better to it, and if I was left to my own devices, our signs would all say that. But luckily my mum is a waffler, and I'm quite a waffler as well, but she's just a much nicer person than I am, and she's very good at softening the language. So from my point of view, the way I overcome that is putting people between me and not necessarily the visitors. I'm okay with real contact, but in terms of the messaging and the wording and the language, my sort of education background is engineering, so I'm quite black and white. So that kind of messaging we've softened by having other people involved with it. So we have tried to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we did do one of the videos. I recorded that earlier this week. That went out last night and has been well received. It's not had as many watches as much of some of our more interesting videos, but we are doing a condensed version that will become the header on Facebook. It will be attached as a short video to the or a link, well, at least to the email that they get as confirmation for their tickets, and that's explaining to everybody how the day works, what we've changed, where they park, and it walks them around. So for people that have visited before, it's quite good for them to familiarise themselves. Ones that haven't visited before, it puts their minds at rest for where the sanitizer points are, what the till points look like, how the one-way system works, all that kind of thing. So the video is about 4 minutes long. And you did mention budgets. So we did it with a phone. It's a good camera phone, but it's just a normal phone nonetheless. A microphone is 150 quid from Amazon. So a Bluetooth receiver, so you can stand a bit further away, so you can show the rest of your surroundings, not be right up close to the camera. Lots of them have done them a bit, to my mind, a bit too close, so you can only see a headshot, and it's not very useful. So we did that so we could distance it, and a mount for the phone, that was about a tenner as well. So for well under £200, we created a pretty okay video. It's never going to win a BAFTA, but it is very informative and it will guide people through. That as well as the good to go thing, which is very easy to apply for anybody that hasn't done that. And then it's not just contact with the visitors, it's contact with the team. So we're constantly talking to our staff to take them along the journey. And with organisations like Visit Lincoln, we're keeping people like you guys in the know, so you can help us with how we reopen. So I touched a little bit on local visitors and the future of Rand Farm Park. So we have partly since my involvement really moved towards an events-based model. We're really focusing on Christmas. Christmas has become quite big for us. Easter has as well, and they clearly we've lost the Easter trade this year, having spent quite a bit setting it up. But a real concern for us for the future is Christmas, how we can deliver our Christmas experience in a socially distanced manner. So our Christmas experience, we put about 12,000 people through it a year, and we can have sort of up to 1,300 people in a day through the grottos, which can be quite congested. So our challenge for the next couple of months, really, assuming that the restrictions continue to ease, is to look at how we can plan for Christmas for the future. The one thing we have worked on, or we thought we'd worked on, is looking at the opportunities out of this. So we did have a new to market product that was ready to go earlier this week, which is a joint venture I've done with another local company to provide, I won't say too much about it, but we will be releasing it in the not too distant future, provide a birthday party package for children, because there have been 3 months of not being able to have a birthday party, particularly for parents that are unsure of having other people in the house. We were looking at doing a new birthday party package for that, which, yeah, hopefully that'll be something new for us as well. So yeah, just a final point on positive messaging. We've opened all the doors. We've got our regular team there that people are used to seeing, to welcome everybody in, and just be really gentle with our approach, because I think people will be quite hesitant. We put tickets out on sale earlier this week. They've gone moderately, it has to be said. There's still a significant degree of caution. We've had loads of members book on, which is great, but still an air of caution. A lot of our marketing is focused on people further afield. We've cut that right back to a local audience, but still there's some caution. But a lot of the vast majority of our ticket sales are the day before anyway. So we're hoping that it will pick up to an okay weekend this weekend, to then build up to the summer holidays and have a pretty good trading period through the holidays, when we can do all of the activities as we'd like to. So that's a bit of a rundown of what we've done and how we've done it. I don't want to bore you for too much longer with it, but I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got any queries about what we've done. Obviously, we've only done a very, very small offer in terms of our members weekend that we've opened, but if I could help anybody with that, then please ask away.
Anyone got any questions, Jess? Are they on chat? I think, to be fair, Josh,
not on
really
chat. If anybody does have a question, raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Can I ask a question, please, Josh? So in terms of your members, so presumably these are your season ticket holders who've paid up front for the year. How are you managing that process? Because, as I say, I'm looking after 2 theme parks at the minute, and it's very difficult because obviously there are a lot of season ticket holders who've paid for the year and are only therefore able to use their season tickets for a portion of the year now, and a lot of them are requesting refunds. How are you managing that, your side?
So upfront members is dead easy. From our point of view, we've simply extended the validity of their membership. So we've called it 3 months. We've added 3 months on from the beginning of July. We've also given them additional vouchers because of the direct debit. So I'll come back to that one. But for the direct debit members that we haven't been able to stop taking the money from them, we're giving them all of that money back plus 10% in vouchers. And we communicated that with them quite early on when we knew we couldn't really suspend it. And we have kept reminding them, because there'll be loads of people that as soon as lockdown hit, went down their list of direct debits and thought, what can I cull from here? And clearly we would have been very, very close to the top. So we never at any point asked for any charity. So there were lots of businesses asked for people to support their animals, all that kind of stuff, which is really not our style. But lots of members, I guess, felt that they were helping to contribute by continuing to pay their direct debit. So we continue to take that, but we have been communicating with them this week, the sort of final communication with the vouchers will go out today. So they will get, if for round figures, they have £5 per person per month, and they've got 3 or 4 people in their family, that's £20 per month. So we'll give them £66 back to spend as a voucher on site. And that can be used against anything. So we obviously birthday parties we're struggling with, but we'll allow them to use it for birthday parties, retail, catering, whatever they like. And that's gone down very well. We had, when we announced it, we had lots of messages from people saying, look, we don't expect this, we're happy to be a part of it and happy to contribute. So that's how we managed that one. And then just to make it fair for the upfront members, we're offering them a 10% equivalent. So if they've paid £75 for the year, my maths can let me down here, but they pay, call it £6 a month equivalent. So we'll give them 60p per person per month. So they get £1.80 per person roughly. So it's not as much, obviously, but the bulk of their payment they're still going to have.
Thank
That
you.
makes sense. Thanks, Josh. And I think it's really good as well that you know, in that short video you'd made, you've communicated from the very beginning of your guest journey. So you just mentioned when you were talking that you've told them where to park, what to do, and I think that's really important for guests as well, because they want to be informed. They don't, and sometimes people get embarrassed about walking in the wrong direction, or you know, just they get flustered. So I think it's really good that you've communicated that so well, and that's credit to you. I shall also remember now to, when I email you, to keep it quite short and to the point. Just if you're one of those kind of people, so I'll just keep that short and to the point.
We're good at waffling back.
No waffling. Just this is what we need. So that is great. We're going to quickly speak to, I think, Caroline Bingham, because we are in a position now where all the leaflets that you see in visitor attractions, B&Bs, you know, hotels, wherever, the leaflet holders are all about to be, I'm hoping, filled up and redistributed. So, Caroline, are you free to just give us a quick update?
Can you hear me, Samantha?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, super. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much to Samantha and Charlotte for this opportunity to speak to everyone this afternoon. We've been working throughout lockdown here at County Life, so I have to say it's been the most interesting experience, most stressful experience, most lovely experience in equal parts, really. Obviously, we're coming out of this now, and we're restarting our leaflet distribution service. Izzy is working on the phones at the moment, trying to help me get the rounds organised. What we've gathered very much from the attractions and hospitality sectors is that there seems to be 2 waves of opening, really. People who are planning on opening sort of at the beginning of July, and others who are waiting until the end of July, maybe even the beginning of August. So what we're planning to do is to do 2 big tranches, really. Obviously, I've done the risk assessments on all of this. We understand that some people may not wish to receive a rack, so we want to be advised of that. Equally, we would rather do an exchange on the doorstep with someone, where someone is leaving us a rack to pick up, and we can leave a rack for them to collect. We'd rather not come into a premises. We will do if you want us to. Terence, our driver, will be fully PPE enabled. Obviously, we're looking after him and our clients, but we just very much need to know when people are opening and when they would be prepared or not be prepared to receive this material. I was talking to Gavin from North Kesteven District Council today. He was ringing to catch up with me to say, are you still going ahead with this delivery starting on July the 13th? Because they're very keen to get their material out. And obviously I reassured him that we were, but that we may be doing it in 2 tranches. If there is anyone out there who's still has spoken to us about supplying us with leaflets for the racks. We can still accept those next week and obviously going forwards, but we will be starting the deliveries on July the 13th. Has anybody got any questions at all on any of that?
No, I think you're getting away lightly there, Caroline.
Well, as I say, Izzy is on the phone contacting people as well. So
yeah, wow. And roughly, so it would be a help, Caroline, if we could put a message out to partners and just sort of convey this to them, that this is, you're going to start doing it, and
would you like me
contact you.
Would you like me to draft an email and get that over to you, Samantha?
Yeah, that would be perfect if you could,
I
and
will
then
do
I can
that.
circulate that for you. Yes.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, actually.
Good. And if people want to be included, sorry, I was just thinking, if people want to be included in the leaflet holders, how do they go about that?
Just either telephone us or drop me an email at info@km-media.co.uk. I've already had 2 more inquiries in the last couple of days. Actually, from one was from Don Amott that Charlotte sent to me, but also from another self-catering accommodation premises that's just opening this year, and they actually don't want a rack, they want the loose material because they've put an information point in themselves. So we're very flexible about how we supply this material to you, but obviously we prefer to get it right from the outset, that we're bringing what you want, the quantities that you want, and we do those to you in the way that you want as well.
Perfect. So yes, if you pop that email over, and then I'll circulate it. And obviously, if anybody listening today needs to get in touch with Caroline, you can always drop me an email, and I'll forward your address on.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. It's been
thanks for the opportunity to talk to everybody, and can I just wish everybody every success on their reopening, because I know this is very stressful time. And it's almost like starting a business from scratch, even though we've been running, continually through this. I think whether you've been open or closed, all of it feels like relaunching your business from scratch, and that's quite overwhelming at times, isn't it? So well done, everybody, and good luck.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. That's lovely. So it pretty much brings us to the end of this week's catch up. Little show of appreciation, as always, for everybody who spoke today. So I want to see you all clap, please.
Samantha, I think we've got a question from Wendy.
Oh. Go on then, Wendy.
Yeah, sorry, it was just, I'm desperately trying to remember the full context of the question, but in the tourism officers meeting on Tuesday, something did come up about the leaflets, and handling of leaflets, and sort of like, is it a bit like the sort of like sign that the previous speaker meant, like if you pick one up, have you got to touch it, Caroline? I think that was
my approach to this would be that really you've got to make sure that if somebody collects a piece of literature, they've got to keep that piece of literature. I think the days of using that literature at the moment as a browsing tool is not viable. I think if you've got guests coming to your property, you need to give them whatever literature and make sure that they use it and keep it. And you've probably got to destroy it after that, unless you can isolate that material for 72 hours. I think you've got to give this out as dedicated material.
Yeah.
So are you putting a sign up to that effect on your like dispensers, Caroline? Like if you pick it up, take it, sort of thing.
I wasn't personally, but I could do that.
I think all the whoever's got the leaflet holder there, maybe they could also do that, couldn't they? They could make like a little tent card and just put it up at the side and make sure that people are aware. And I think moving forward, people are becoming more and more aware that they're not supposed to keep touching things and putting things back. It's getting used to a new way of living and working. It's the new norm. I'm just conscious of time, but if you've got any other questions, fire them over. I can always forward them on to relevant speakers or try and answer them for you. But I do appreciate you joining us this week. We're going to be meeting next week again at 3:30 as usual. We're going to be chatting on the subject of staying safe virtually. There's been an absolutely huge rise in incidents of cyber fraud during lockdown. So nothing to be scared of, just we're going to have some tips and advice from somebody in that sector who's just going to tell us what to look out for, what might look a bit suspect, how to just stay safe. So thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And as Caroline very rightly said, good luck to everybody. I do wish you all the best, and I hope you continue to grow and get stronger. Thank you. See you next week. Bye.